Hello and welcome, I'm Johnny and you want magical, magnetic, interactive carousels. Tailwind 3 just released with new utility classes for fancy underlines, native form control styling, and lots more, including what they call the Scroll Snap API. Simon did an awesome overview of all the new shiny and spent about a minute showcasing this. But people have been charging money for decent carousels, so let's spend a bit more time building one ourselves for free with Tailwind and Svelte. Our final solution will be able to render anything, but let's start with a humble goal. All we want for now is to render a list of images. These images in our index file will do. Let's write a component to pass them to. Let's create a carousel.svelte in our lib directory. We'll write some TypeScript to declare our component takes an images prop. Let's type it as an array of image item objects. They have a string title and a string source. For our UI, we'll render all of this in an unordered list. For each of the items, we're gonna destructure their title and source and render a list item. Inside the list item goes an image tag. That's where we'll pass the title and source. And let's give it an alt as well. Alright, here they all are. If you're curious, these are images I've taken in some of the places I've worked from the past couple years. But maybe you don't care about that cheeky travel flex, so let's make our UL a flex container to minimize how much screen real estate they take. Better, but that's too much stringage, let's apply string 0 to the list items so they can keep their intended width. Alright, this looks like a carousel, but now the whole page scrolls horizontally. Let's contain that overflow within the UL with overflow x auto. Add some gap between the pictures and we're there when it comes to the looks. We're also at the key point of the video. When we scroll, it's a roll of the dice where we end up. What we want is to force one of the pictures to be in the middle of the screen. We do that by applying those new Tailwind 3 utility classes, snapX and snapMandatory to our container, and snapCenter to the list items. And now, no matter what we do, we'll end up with an image right in the middle. If we scroll enough, we make it to the next one. If we don't, we snap back, and we can do big swipes to move through many. Well, an issue remains. The very first image can never be centered, and neither can the last one. There isn't enough room to force it to the center. We can create that room using pseudo-elements. We can force a before pseudo-element into existence by prefixing any Tailwind class with before. Let's apply string 0 to it, and set its width to the arbitrary value of 30% viewport width. Looks like it's gonna work. Let's do the same for the after pseudo element. Sweet! There are a few more things we'd commonly do with a carousel. We may want to provide some anchors so people know what's hiding in the carousel and quickly scroll to whichever item they wish. So let's render some navigation, anchors for each of the images. Let's have an href point to some dynamic IDs. And let's allow for a dynamic name for the carousel, in case we want to have many of them in the same page. Let's write a method for this actually, since we'll use it to add the respective dynamic IDs to the list items, and we want to ensure they are the same. Plus, we can even export this to be used when we do want our navigation controls to live outside of the carousel component. Alright, clicking the anchor gets me to the correct item instantly, which is not cool enough. To get there smoothly, we can override what happens when we click those anchors. Let's write a scroll into view method in a new file. It's going to be an event handler. There are Tailwind classes for these too. We're going JavaScript as it helps us do scrolling on a key press or an interval. We'll destructure the current target from the event and find the element we want to scroll to by using the query selector and passing the anchors href into it. If we didn't find an element, return, but if we did, let's scroll into view. and pass the option for smooth behavior. Finally, we'll give this method to our anchors to run onClick, and let's prevent default, as we know that the default behavior is to instantly get there. And if we click now, smooth indeed. However, forced scrolling is one of the things we should be mindful of doing. So let's go back to our method and check whether the user prefers reduced motion using the window match media method. We'll now use a ternary on the behavior if it matches auto scroll and only smooth scroll when it doesn't. Indeed, the scroll is now instant when I prefer reduced motion, smooth when I haven't enabled that setting. Alright, works a treat, and this is a trick we can adapt to scroll through the items on a timer or to add next and previous arrows. But for now, let's just take the navigation controls out of the component and put them in the index file to show that's possible too. In order to use getItemID in the index file without tying it to a component instance, we must export it as a module in a separate script block. We could tie it to a component instance and then it magically know the component name as well, but I think that's complicated enough to be its own tutorial. Another thing we may want is to allow for different components to nest in our carousel. We could explicitly style these as cards right here in the carousel component. We could even extract this UI as a bespoke component and use it here. But maybe we want multiple carousels with different items in various places in our app. Maybe we even want some items in the same carousel to look different. For that, we'll need to use a special Svelte element, Svelte component. Let's now say that our carousel takes items, not images. Every item is an object that has a key of props, which is a record of string keys to anything. They also have a component, which will be a Svelte component. We'll now be looping over these items, destructuring their props and component, and instead of our hard-coded review card, we'll be using the special Svelte component. We specify which component it should be with the this prop, and we'll spread the rest of the props. Again, let's put our item type in that module script block so we can import it elsewhere. And the component will actually be type of Svelte component. This looks crazy enough to work. Let's go back to our index file where we're using the carousel and map through our array of images to create our array of items. Every image object becomes the item props, and they will all use the same review card component. Feed those items to our refactor carousel and we're back. Let's create an upcoming card to show the extra versatility this allows. And let's add an image from Unsplash this time to spice things up. Awesome! As always, all of this is available in a GitHub repo if you'd like a better look and deployed to click around. You could even inspect the style rules Tailwind applies and use them directly in your project. You know, even if you ain't using Tailwind. Tools you ain't using, even tools you dislike, can still inspire you to write something cool. And inspiration is the point of my videos. Hopefully I've sparked some creativity today. Maybe you've learned something. I know I did. And in any case, thanks a bunch for watching.